you really have to know what to take, and what to say no to.
There's something with this business that many other businesses don't have, which this has a substantial liability, like an inventory liability.
There is a good business here. It's just really a matter of, I think the systems and the accounting is like your number one issue.
That's the one thing that's sort of hard for me about this business is I'm not sure how to grow it.
Episode acquisition.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Acquisitions Anonymous. This is the internet's number one podcast on buying, selling, and operating small businesses. My name is Bill D'Alessandro. I'm one of your hosts, and today I am with Heather Enderson, and we have a new type of business we've never done on the pod before. It is a consignment store. So peeling back the economics of consignment, it's actually pretty wild. North of 40% net margins and zero inventory, which is pretty neat. They have some schemes where they kind of keep working capital in the system and try to prevent you from walking out with a check and instead get you to buy other stuff. So really unique business. I think maybe hard to replicate, maybe more of a buy rather than build. So first time we've ever done this model. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode of Acquisitions Anonymous.
Are you ready to take the leap into business ownership, but you don't know where to start? Well, look no further than Acquisition Lab, the premier resource for entrepreneurs seeking to buy their dream business. Founded by Harvard MBA and acquisition expert Walker Deibel, the lab is your fast track to success in the search, diligence, and acquisition process. With hands-on support, world-class resources, and a community of like-minded entrepreneurs, Acquisition Lab gives you the tools and confidence to navigate every step of the journey. And we're proud to call Walker and Chelsea, the lab's director, longtime friends of the podcast. They're passionate about helping entrepreneurs like you take the next big step. So don't wait to make your business ownership dream a reality. Visit acquisitionlab.com today to learn more and schedule your free consultation. And when you do, be sure to tell them the Acquisitions Anonymous podcast sent you.
Hey, Heather. Excited for another episode of Acquisitions Anonymous.
I am excited to see what we're going to talk about today. You never know what it might be.
You never know what it might be. But before we get started, we were, without sharing anything personal, I was just congratulating Heather. Heather's business, Viso Capital, had crushed in Q4. She just kind of put the numbers together and told me that she had a great quarter. And so I was just telling her she was doing a great job. Yeah,
it was exciting. And we cannot wait to see what kind of growth we're going to see in 2025. I mean, the market activity is booming. And people are getting more and more smart about how to go about it. And it's just exciting to see. Can't wait.
Yeah. So, I mean, you closed dozens and dozens of loans, right? In Q4.
Yes, we are rounding in the next week or so, we will hit 200 million in fundings since inception. And that from our first deal to the 200 million mark, it will take us about 16 months, which is pretty incredible. So
wow,
that's pretty exciting.
Wild. Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. So if you're out there looking for an SBA loan, Heather knows how to do SBA loans. You should get in touch with her at Viso, and she's getting some really great below market deals for people. These days.
Some people are getting some fantastic rates. So that's part of what we do is find you the best bank and the lowest rate that we can find.
So you mentioned, Heather, that it's booming out there. You know, this is being recorded in mid-January. I would say this is a market flip from probably 6 to 12 months ago.
Mm-hmm. People were getting nervous for a little while there and kind of slowing, putting on the brakes, not sure where to go. Now you see it accelerating. I think, there's a new president coming in. People are a little more optimistic about the taxes, the tax situation, where that might go, especially for small businesses. And, technology is bringing about all kinds of change. And I think that probably lends to or drives more corporate refugees, corporate folks who want to get out of that kind of system and, take the chance at becoming entrepreneurs through buying something. So the demand has increased.
So more sellers, more buyers. It seems like they're able to find market clearing prices, which was a problem for a while.
Right. I think right. Exactly. That was a problem. There was a big gap in valuation for a while for buyers and sellers, but now I think everyone's on the same page, pretty close, how to structure it in a way that they can get the debt and the equity. And then also, what is the valuation that, is fair for both sides. I think you see a lot more of that kind of being on the same page right now.
Are the banks a little bit looser with credit than they were a year or two ago? I don't want to say looser. Lenders never want to say that, but are they, more understanding, a little bit more aggressive than they were?
Yeah, they're aggressive. I mean, what helps lenders along is being competitive with each other. They've all kind of launched their 25 initiatives, and they're all telling us they want to grow by X amount. So if they want to grow, they're going to have to get a little more flexible. They're going to have to get a little more aggressive. But internally, they never say they're getting easier on credit. But if they're trying to get more competitive, they tend to have to, or at least bring down their rates a bit. So I think you're seeing a little bit of both.
That's all good if you are a seller or a buyer.
It's all good.
Love to see it. Okay. Well, speaking of selling things and buying things, we have a deal that helps you do that. So this was sent to me by my friend Ted Williams of the Tiny Money newsletter. And he actually asked me for a comment on it. I said, a comment, I'm going to give you 30 minutes. So this is a profitable Charlotte consignment store for sale. So I don't exactly know which one this one is, but it is in my hometown. It is a consignment store located outside of Charlotte, North Carolina, and sells primarily children's clothes, shoes, baby equipment, including high chairs, etc. It does $425,000 of gross revenue and $190,000 of cash flow. So really strong margin there, pushing 40% or so net margin. And the asking price is $550,000. So almost exactly 3x. It says it is centrally located in a downtown area with ample parking and easy access. The store currently has more than 8,000 consignors, with at least 2,000 of those as repeat customers. A large percentage of those consignors are also shoppers, which makes the mechanics of shopping easier for both the store and the customers. The intake process for consignors is quite easy. No callbacks, no givebacks. The owner knows what will sell in the store, so there is very little unsaleable inventory. And what does not sell after a short period on the shelves is donated. There is no inventory at all owned by the company, so there is no risk of obsolescence. When a sale is made, the consignor's account is credited with a percentage of the sale, and the store takes the rest. Many consignors then use their account credits to buy other items from the store. So it's sort of a closed loop system, which is amazing. The store is fully equipped with new signage, HVAC, racks, custom-built checkout and intake area, and a computer system. There are 2 connected buildings with 2 bathrooms, 2 break rooms, dressing rooms, and a large storage area. The company has a very active Facebook page with 2,000 and growing organic followers. It is in Charlotte, North Carolina, and they are selling because they are purchasing a new business. It was established in 1994, so it's very seasoned. Has 2 full-time employees. The rent is $750 a month. And it says the owner will stay on for some transition period and has identified specific ways a new owner could grow the business with very little effort. The store is only open 4 days a week, is closed on weekends, and you could also grow with a website and additional marketing. So this is by Sunbelt Business Brokers and Al Waugh, I think is how you say that, who looks like a very nice guy. Heather, what do you know about this, or what do you think about this listing?
Well, the last time I was in a consignment store was, and the types that I would go to were for equestrian stuff, saddles, riding clothes. I mean, that's a common way to buy equestrian stuff on a budget, and to sell it. Frankly, I've sold stuff that way too, where, I needed to get rid of some stuff that was still usable and I could get a little bit of money for it. This sounds like it's mostly clothing. Looks like high chairs, baby equipment, children's shoes, children's clothing, obviously stuff that they grow out of, they don't really wear out. I think it's a great little business. I do think, though, they sort of hint at it here, you really have to know what to take, and what to say no to. So when people bring you their junk, which, I'm sure they see a lot of that, they have to know how to sort through the junk and know what they can really sell and what not to take on. And then also to clear the racks so that the store doesn't look cluttered. The consignment stores I was in were very cluttered.
Yeah, they can take a very kind of pawn shop vibe, can't they?
Yeah, and you'd feel like, it was kind of exhausting to look through what they had to see if there was anything good. Where, I think that's what would be sort of the difference between a good consignment store and a not so good one. But I love the idea of no inventory. I love that.
Yeah, I mean, a retail store with no inventory, like that's a rare thing. So the economic model, so the way this works, right, is let's say you have some branded, baby clothes or a high chair or a stroller or something. Let's say this stroller is worth $500 new. You bring it in the consignment store. They might say, we are going to sell this for, $300 and we will give you a 50% revenue share.
Right.
So you leave your stroller with them. They put it on the shelf. They make sure it's clean and merchandised well. And then if it sells for $300, the store pockets $150 of the $300 sale and pays you out $150. But the key is they don't actually pay you out. They just credit your store credit account with the $150, and you have to come back into the consignment store and ask for a check.
Right.
And they say, and then you get in there and they say, sure, we will give you a $150 check, or your money is worth 20% more if you use it to buy something else in the store. Right. Which kind of keeps the funds in the system.
Yep. And these are a lot of these people are going to be moms, right? That brought in the stuff they needed to get rid of. And then they go, oh yeah, well, you know what? This isn't coming out of my checking account. I can go buy something else. And that's, what you're going to tend to do is you're going to just go ahead and use the store credit rather than get the cash. And so, that's why you've got such great profit margins here. Really the overhead, the people, and the rent is primarily the cost of this business.
Right. And so my wife is a mom. So we have a 5-year-old, 3-year-old, and 1-year-old. So she goes to places like this all the time and takes the stuff that the kids have grown out of. And most of the time they go, oh, like we don't want your Target jumper or whatever, right? But if it's like a nice brand or it's a thing that and they have a sense for it at the consignment store, and they'll go, oh yeah, this will take. And they kind of have to know where to price it and whether they want to put it on their shelf. And then if it sells, you get paid. And that's what she says all the time. She goes, oh, I had credit, so I bought something else, right?
It's fun. I think it's great. You get rid of stuff you don't need and you have fun shopping and you get new stuff. Great. Love it.
Yep. And this niche, baby, though, is kind of evergreen, right? It's sort of perfect for consignment.
Yeah. What I'm curious about is it the seller that's really driving the decisions on what goes on the shelves and what does not? So in other words, are you going to have to replace that skill if you're buying this business? Are you going to be the one that needs to make those decisions, and how are you going to learn how to do that? So there's probably a little bit of transition risk if it's the seller that's making those decisions, and I would imagine it is.
It probably is. This is sort of that feel you get after a lot of time in the business. Now, that being said, you're protected because you don't have to buy it up front. Like if you take something and it sits on the shelf for a little while, it sounds like they already have a policy where it just gets donated.
Yep.
In which case, I wonder if there's even a tax write-off. I wonder, there is a tax write-off, but whose is it?
Yeah.
For somebody, right? So I wonder how that gets distributed. That if you, the store, could keep a portion of the tax write-off, that would be really fascinating if you split the tax write-off with the person somehow.
Speaking of taxes, and maybe some accountant out there will tell us, I wonder if they have to report the revenue that they paid, like when you do get a check, when you don't use the store credit. I wonder if this kind of business has to 1099 you if it's above a certain amount.
I'm sure they do.
Be a bit of an administrative burden, right?
So I bet the administrative is a huge pain in the butt. So that would be a huge pain in the butt. Because you have to, what does it say? They have 8,000 consignors and 2,000 of those are repeat customers. And each of them is going to have like a store credit balance. Yep. Right. And then they're going to have an inventory balance. You got to keep track of what you have, if you have any of their stuff, and what split you've agreed to. Hopefully it's standard. And then their store credit balance. So there's absolutely an admin component. I wonder if there is software to run consignment.
Exactly what I'm thinking. Is this on paper? Oh my gosh. Can you imagine? Scary, scary. Yeah. If it's on paper, I might run very fast away from this. But if it's on a decent system of some kind, even if they sort of kind of semi-customized it out of some other platform, then it might be pretty interesting. But yeah, I think that's probably the biggest headache of all here is the systems and the tracking.
3 years ago, Kelsey and I decided that we wanted to launch a conference. It was in a space that nobody else was talking about yet, Holdcos.
I only attended 3 live events last year and only one big conference, and that was Holdco Conference.
We ran 2 amazing events in Cleveland, one in 22 and one in 23. And after the event in 2023, we decided that we really had to take it up to the next level. We took a little bit of a break. We started looking for how could we turn this conference into something that a decade from now, we can be proud that we launched it.
Someone and some team needed to step up, and we're doing that. I'm partnering with Kelsey and John to host Holdco Conference in 2025.
We're so excited to partner with Girdley and his team for Holdco Conf 2025.
If you're somebody who runs a Holdco, wants to run a Holdco in the future, isn't our buddy named Matt Paulson who hates Holdcos because he has problems, and you want to learn how to manage multiple businesses at once, want to learn how to incubate companies, that's my joy. I love doing it. I'm excited to talk about it. And you want to connect with other people that are building portfolios of companies as a Holdco practitioner, then this is for you.
The big news is it gets to be a ski conference plus Holdco Conf. So this conference is for folks that are building a Holdco as their main strategy. So you're going to be incubating businesses, you're going to be buying businesses, and you're going to be growing through Holdcos.
You should come to Utah next spring. We're not doing this like other conferences because frankly, I hate those other conferences. This is much more of a sense of camaraderie and very little of the let's get drunk and have a cocktail party and pretend it's progress type conferences that a lot of things are. So space is limited. Get your tickets now, and we'd love to see you. It's going to be very small, very intimate, and filled with great people.
Check out holdcoconference.com for more deets.
So not only that, so system and tracking, but then you also alluded to the accounting, because there's something with this business that many other businesses don't have, which this has a substantial liability, like an inventory liability. Right. Because so 2 things. There's the store credits that you owe, like all of those store credit balances. I think that that the seller should have to pay you for those, or that you wouldn't have to pay the seller for that because you're going to come out of pocket.
It's money that's owed. Yeah.
It's owed. Like that's a liability.
It's like customer deposits. It's kind of almost the same thing.
It's like a gift card deposit. It's like a gift card you sold but have not redeemed yet.
Yes.
And that I would need to even think through how to handle that.
Well, and there's some legality around gift cards that may or may not apply to these store credits. So it differs state by state. But for example, I've run into this in med spa businesses that sell gift cards. In certain states, once the gift card is aged past a certain number of months, you can keep it. The law is it's obvious this person's never coming back to spend their gift card, and you can sweep that into revenue. I wonder if in North Carolina, which North Carolina, I doubt it. Some of the other state laws I've seen in North Carolina, but it'd be interesting to know the legality of whether those store credits ever sort of expire and you don't have to pay them.
Yep. And this is also an area where sometimes the accounting rules and the tax rules can differ. Right? Like you may have to sweep that into revenue, but for tax purposes, you may not have to recognize it as revenue. Sometimes that's very, very different. Right. So you would need, if I were to buy this business or any other consignment business, I would want to have an accountant. Like I would want a Q of E or some sort of, this is a small business for Q of E, but I would want some sort of accountant to say how best to handle this. Right. This is a little easier than gift cards because people aren't like running around with them in their wallets and show up and try to redeem it. Like you should have a computerized record of everybody's account balance in this case. So you should kind of know what your liability is.
You should. But I've seen a lot of these. I being the spreadsheet numbers person, I have seen some, horror stories. So that would be, this is one of those deals where I think you need to kill it early. By finding this stuff out, like how messy is this accounting or are these systems? If they're messy, this cash flow figure that they're reporting, it could be very far off from that. The real tax or accounting figure could be way far off. So this would be one of those businesses where I'd sort of have a gut feeling that I've got to do some very quick financial diligence with a professional And that's the problem with businesses like that. You have to spend money to figure out if it's transactable. You have to spend your own money as a buyer on professionals and unwinding and, asking a lot of questions, only to find out that maybe there's a 50-50 chance that this is not transactable, that this, or at least not at the price that this, seller might be expecting. That's something we see a lot, any kind of business that is prone to messy accounting. And there's a lot of those.
Yeah, this seems like it could be prone to messy accounting if it didn't have software. That being said, the messy accounting you don't have is inventory here, because you don't own any of your inventory. So you don't really care what it's valued at. Right. Worst case, you had to donate the entire inventory of the store. You wouldn't lose any money. I mean, your customers, your consignors might be pissed at you because that was their valuable designer baby stuff. But you don't have to diligence the inventory as thoroughly, and you don't have obsolescence risk on the inventory.
Right. Yeah, agreed. Yeah, there is a good business here. It's just really a matter of, I think, the systems and the accounting is like your number one issue.
Yep. And this is a good niche for it, kids also. You mentioned equestrian and other kind of sports stuff. Are niches where you see consignment in. You also see it in fashion, although that's harder. So my wife also shops at consignment fashion. Yeah. And they've got to be really savvy about what they take, right?
Yep. Yeah.
Purses you mentioned.
Luxury purses. Yeah. People trade those. They even trade those online. So there's definitely some categories that make a lot of sense here. And I guess if you got this business really humming in the baby product and kids clothing category, you could maybe expand to another one of those types of, sports. Sports might be a natural expansion because the kids grow up and they go into, soccer and football and whatever else.
So that's the thing. That's the one thing that's sort of hard for me about this business is I'm not sure how to grow it because these are retail centric businesses. I mean, eBay is not the same thing. Like you can't really do this online. Like people want to be able to bring the laundry basket of stuff and unload it. Right. And then make money when it sells. And there's a shopping experience, right. For people that want to buy secondhand stuff. Like you don't want to buy it on eBay, the shipping, like all that stuff. So this is a retail business. It's hard to expand in other categories in the same store because your branding doesn't make sense. Like there's another one in Charlotte that I don't think is this one called Kid to Kid is a kid consignment store. Like you can't put purses in there. You can't put equestrian stuff in there. Maybe you can do some sports, but it's kind of hard to grow. On the flip side, I want to understand what consignment is doing as an industry, but I think it would be hard to shrink. Also, if you have a good lease in a good location and the community kind of knows you're there, you got a whole bunch, 8,000 consignors, I would think this just sort of runs and your main thing not to screw up is to not merchandise it the wrong way.
Right. Yeah. So you're right. Maybe growth isn't really that easy. And then speaking of the location, like you said, it's really kind of critical or core to this business. You need to find out about the lease if you're going to buy this business. How much longer? This is absolutely location dependent. So how much longer does this seller have on that lease? Can you get it extended? If so, what's the cost? I mean, you really have to secure that location for a good period of time to want to buy this business at, was it 4 times or 3? No, 3 times.
3 times. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Lease matters a lot here. Location matters a ton because you're part of the local community and people know that they're going to go to that retail store and unload their stuff. But I just think this is stable, right? This is a community institution. It's probably not going to grow a lot. It's probably not going to shrink a lot unless I'm totally wrong and people are abandoning consignment in droves for eBay. But I don't think so because it has a different dynamic. So I don't know that I would pay 3X, but there might be a transaction here, if it's a good store in a good location. Could you get SBA debt for this? Then it's a little bit oddball, but
you could. Remember, SBA loans are always underwritten to the tax return. So, depending on what the tax returns show, because this also feels like there could be some cash business going on here, maybe not, but I'm just, this is the kind of business where I kind of tend to think that could be going on. If they're not reporting it all on the tax return, then you won't be able to get financing. But if the tax returns look good, you could get an SBA loan for this. Yeah.
Yeah. I would imagine that this is an industry where the quality of accounting varies wildly. Like if this business has good systems and like good accounting and everything is done the right way, it can be a really beautiful business, right? It can be almost entirely digital. People are like paying with store credit. Like you're not even having payment processing fees all the time.
Yeah.
You're just moving dollars around in a ledger as people buy things. And everything can pretty easily be computerized. That version of this business is beautiful. The other version, which Heather, I think you're envisioning when you go, I don't know if you can get a loan, is when it's all on paper and it's not documented and it's like buy, sell, trade, very informal, which is obviously completely untransactable.
Right. So that exactly. And I think I remember that in the back of my head from the equestrian place that I used to go to, because they bring out these big books and it gave me anxiety just to look at it.
Yes, for real.
Just a mess. Yeah.
Yeah. But I don't know. It's also not quite big enough to get me super interested. 200,000 of net income, like you're running a retail store. But as far as retail stores go, you're doing 200,000 of net income on only 400,000 of sales. So that's like not a lot of people through the front door, right? Nope. So it's a relatively easy retail business to run, relatively low volume because the margins are awesome. So as far as retail businesses go, I really don't hate it.
Yeah. A local person that, that likes retail, that's already maybe got some retail experience, understands the baby product and kids clothing niche. Yeah. Great little business for somebody like that.
Yeah, I like it. Now, the question to me is, do you buy it or can you start it? Do you think you can, for less than 3 times, for less than $500,000, can you start a kids consignment store in this area?
Well,
or not?
It's a supply side question, because I think you could probably go get the lease. Retail's not that hard to find these days, retail space. But can you get the word out to the right people, the moms of the community that, or whatever product it is you're going to sell, that, they need to bring their stuff to you, and you're going to be able to sell it. I think there's a ramp up period that might be kind of long to get enough inventory to get some traction. And that would be the hard part.
Yep. It also seems like if this is the area you wanted to be in, you might kill them and also not get enough traction to get off the ground. It might be, you just divide the market and then both businesses are half the size, and they both can't survive. Yeah. So what's interesting is like, I would initially think, oh, you can just replicate this. This might be harder to replicate than I originally thought.
Yeah. Because you got to source all the inventory, and you got to do it over time. I'm sure they didn't start with, I'm sure they have a full store now, but they didn't start that way. So that would be tough. I think that is a moat. This one has a little bit of a moat. If it's got a nice, what did they say? 8,000 consignors. That's the moat. That's what you're buying.
Yeah. So I'm kind of surprised. I like this more. Like initially you're like baby clothing retail. No, thank you. But there's a lot of things to like about this.
Yeah, I agree.
All right. So are you thumbs up, Heather?
I'm thumbs up if the financials are okay.
if it has software and clean accounting,
yes,
thumbs up. Otherwise, run screaming.
Yes, that's me.
Yep. Cool. Well, this was a first. I don't think we've ever done a consignment store.
No, we haven't. That was cool.
So shout out to Ted. Thank you for sending me this deal. And you can find his newsletter. I think it's just tinymoney.com. So thanks, Ted. Thank you for listening to Acquisitions Anonymous. Join us next week.